Hello folks, this is a follow-up to the week 6 workshop. In the workshop we got as far as having the select movie view backed by Firebase and Firestore particularly. And we showed how modifying something in the Firestore database would cause it to update on the screen here. So I could pick, one of these movies, and in this case, this is Gladiator 2, and adjust it to be, say, 2025 November. And when I click update, that adjusts here to update to the top. Now, what we haven't done, and I'll probably get rid of this red cell in a moment too, is we haven't got this view backed by Firestore at all. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Just before we do that, I am going to find this red cell and where was it? Down here somewhere? Movie cell, Superman. Yeah, okay, so let's comment out this code. All right, so what we need to do here is we need to go to our favorite movies table view controller. And the first thing we want to do is add Firestore to this. So we can get rid of our core data import, Firebase, Firestore. The next thing we're going to need to do is add a database to this in the same way that we did in the other example. Sorry, in the other view controller. Sorry, it's the evening. I've been up since early, so apologies for that. We'll get rid of the NS fetched results controller. So here's how we're going to refer to the database, just like we did in the other view controller. The other thing we're going to need to do is have a default user, and how we can do this is via a reference. And in the same way that in the other one we created a collection of movies by saying database.collection and then giving the string movies, we can create a reference to a document within a collection, and we can also do this via a lazy variable. In this case, we say default user ref. So we still say database, we still say collection, and the collection is called users, and we specify a document, and the document could have a particular ID, but we're giving it an ID just called default. So IDs still need to be unique, but as I said in the workshops, they can just be a string. And they can be a human meaningful or readable string. In our view.did_load here, we need to try loading a document from this reference. If that works, great. If it doesn't exist, we need to create it. So the code for doing this would look like this. Here's the part where we try and get the document. It may need to talk to core data to be able to do this. So there's an async version of this where we can await it and it will throw an error. So that's why the try and await, and that's why it's in a do catch block, and that's why it's in a task block. It's asynchronous and we're awaiting it, so it must be in a task block, and because it can throw an error, we need to catch the error. We can check, once we've got a reference to the document, it's not like it will be nil if it doesn't exist. So we have to say, does it exist? And there's a property called exists, and that will tell us if it exists or not. This part actually, all it's really doing is for each of the data things within the document, it's creating a map, and for each one it's calling the string method where it initializes it with there's an initializer for the string method called describing, and it will create a string describing whatever the property is. And this works regardless of what things the data is contained within here. So this is sort of a generic way of printing it. We don't really need to see this. I could comment it out. It's just so you can see what it is actually stored in the database. But basically, if it exists, you could just print that it exists and do nothing. Here, the document doesn't exist, so we would need to create it. I mean, the creation is pretty easy. It's basically just that we say default user ref, and then we say set data, right? And when we call set data, we give it a dictionary. And here, the dictionary could just be as simple as a dictionary literal, where we give the name and yeah, actually that was pretty much what we wanted. And so this is a dictionary literal, just written as one line. So we specify a property called name and a value called Michael, and that's the minimum of what we needed for our default user. Now, this version can throw, and so we can fix it and just put it so it should be happy with that. Then the next thing that we should do is actually show the users that we have on the screen here. So these users are going to be stored via document references, and as we said in the workshop, that's our way of referring to the movies that exist in a different collection. So what does that look like? Well, we add a snapshot listener to our default user, which we have a reference for here. And that will tell us just if that document changes, that one document. So whereas for the previous view controller, we wrote a snapshot listener that told us when the collection changed, and we saw changes to the entire collection. Here we're seeing it just for a single document. The code of that looks pretty similar to what we had before. It's actually better to add the snapshot listener even before this, because then it will notice the change. Actually, it doesn't matter. It will notice the change, whether the change happens before or after. So let's put it here. So we call add snapshot listener. Again, this is a method with a single argument, and it uses this trailing closure syntax. So here's the closure that we get passed, or that we pass it, I should say. First thing it tries to take the document snapshot and decode it. So this is the same as what we saw with the movies, where from the data it gets given, we try and decode it to a user object. If that works, great. If it fails, rather than throw an error and have it be caught, it's just setting user equal to nil. And we're just dropping out of this loop, and it'll show an error, and we'll be able to understand why it can't pass it. Here, we're setting our movies property to nil just at the beginning. We're telling the table view to reload, and then what we're doing is, for each of the favorite movies, we're getting the user's favorite movie property, if that exists, which it might not, which, when we've just created our empty user here, it won't exist. So this if statement will just fail and do nothing. But if the favorite movies property exists, we get a copy of it. And as a task here, we will so this will just happen in the background. We will iterate through each of the favorite movies, and we'll get the particular movie reference. So that will be a document reference, because favorite movies is an array of document references. And we will then fetch that document, which will be one of the movies. Once we've got that, so we've awaited that, which requires potentially is talking to the database, we decode it like we did above with the user. We decode it as a movie. Assuming this works, then we're going to add it to our little array here. We have new favorite movies. Once we're done this loop, we're going to replace the movie property in our class with our new favorite movies, and then we're going to reload data. And the reload data will get run on the main thread, obviously, because the table view being marked as a main actor, and that will cause our table view header update. So we can run this, I guess. Probably the one more thing we would want to do is after, or whether we've loaded, basically if we've got a valid user, which would be here, we also might want to update our navigation item.title to be equal to the user.name, and say something like plus Michael's favorites. Oh yeah, we should say self here. Yeah, okay, so let's run that. Now, we still won't see any information. This should work, and we should at least see it say Michael's favorite, so we'll know it's noticed that there's a document here. Yep, so there you go. So it now knows there's a user called Michael, and it shows Michael's favorites. So that's a good step. Of course, it's not loading any movies. And the reason it's not loading any movies is we're never adding anything to this favorite movies. So where does that happen? That happens on this other view controller. And it happens when we tap on something, right? And right now, that code for the tapping on something is in the select movie view controller, and it's in my did select row at index path method, where we're getting the movie, but we've got no logic for what actually happens. Now, what we do have, let me collapse this down. What we do have is this user object, and this will be an instance of this user, and it has a document ID, so we do know the user. So that should be okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is all right, in here, I want to get what do I want to do? I've got my movie. I guess we should check. Yeah, okay. It is possible that one of these a movie here doesn't have an ID. And the reason for that is, if you have a look, ID here is an optional. And so we need to sort of be aware of that. The easiest way to fix that is just actually have a guard statement, check that the thing has an ID. If it doesn't have an ID, sort of all bets are off. You can't actually add a document reference to it. But so we can just check that. It should, but the class itself has it as an optional. The next thing we would need to do is get a reference to the document that we want to add this to. So we could say default user ref, and this would be our database dot collection users, and it would be dot document default. And then once you've got a reference to this, we want to update it, and how we update it is basically exactly the code that we had with that array union on my slides, and it looks like this. So you just tell it to update data, and update data, as we said in the pre-workshop videos, won't modify any properties you don't list here. So it doesn't affect the name of my default user, but it does affect the default movies. And you could override this whole thing if you wanted, but here instead you're just doing this field array union, and it's basically going to union whatever I have here in this array with whatever's already in the favorite movies array. And here, this is an array literal that has just a document reference. And you can see it's database movies and then the ID of that movie. Oh, and interestingly, I said default here, but we could have actually got the ID from my user here, right? In the same way. So I probably actually should have written this so it's more generic, so it would work with multiple users, by writing, where's my did select road index path? By writing something similar here, where I could also guard against the user having an ID, and we could just say user ID is user.id. I could just check that user has an ID, and then in here this would be sort of like we just did below, user ID. Yeah, so this should work now. Was not user, it's called default user or something, wasn't it? Default. Oh no, it was called user. Ah, but user is a optional? Why is this not working? Yes, it was because user was an optional. So I need to check that I can actually unwrap it. Okay. All right, so if I run this, I need to load my database, and we can see it hopefully change here. So if I click plus and click on something like, I don't know, Mission Impossible, whoa, user has no ID. Huh. Okay. Why would user have no ID? Probably because we're not ever setting it. So, favorite movies. Prepare for segue. Destination user equals user. Probably I have decoded the user here, user, equals try. Yeah, okay, so I never actually said self.user. So now I've actually set it. Yeah, do we have a user property in here? Yeah, we did. Okay, user property, and that's what gets set in the prepare for segue. Yeah, let's see if this works now. Okay, so I go here, I select a movie, maybe Mission Impossible, and it shows up here. And presumably, if I go back into here and reload Firestore in my console, I see I now have a users collection. Inside the users collection, I have a single document called default. And if you have a look, it's got this array. So you can see it says array, and it has the 0 element of the array at index 0. And here's a fully qualified document ID. It's /movies/ and then this ZE5 is the document ID in here. And if we go to Z and go ZE5, or ZE1 or ZE5? No, that's Barbie. Are these in alphabetical order? Z. Did I have it right? ZE5. Oh, this is interesting. Is it the very last one and I can't see it? How strange. All right, let's do another one and we'll just watch it, and you'll see that it will append it into this favorite movies here. So I don't know. Which one of these do I want? This one. You'll see it gets added in here. Let's try and find this one. DAX. DAX, yeah, so here's the F1 one. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, do you know why? Because it's in alphabetical order. So the capital Z was ZE5. It came before the lowercase a. Yeah, so there you go. There's the Mission Impossible one that was getting added. So, you know, you could also manually choose one of these if you wanted. Like, here's the one for Thor, Love and Thunder. And can I copy this ID? Yeah, I can copy it here, I think. No, I can't. Somewhere here. Oh, there we go. I can copy it here. If I was to go into my users and I could click, that's add field, but there's a way I can add. How do I add to? Oh no, that is right. Yeah, add field. I can say string and no, that's add field. That's not right. Somehow there's a way to add to an array. Maybe this is right. I've actually not done this, so I just thought I would try and do it on the fly. Let's try and see if this works. Ah, but this is a string, not a document reference. Okay, so here's where, like, you can change the types in things, but it won't reflect correctly in the app. So I can delete this. Let me see if I can do it properly for you. So change this to a document reference, and then I can say /movies / this, and click add. Okay, so there you go. Then you can see that it. I can refer to that, and it appears as here, Thor, Love and Thunder. I'd never actually done that, or at least couldn't remember how to do it. And then the final thing that we didn't do was basically just the opposite of this, which is in my select movie table view controller, I was doing this array. Where was it? In my did select row at index path. I was doing this array union to add something, but we also want to be able to swipe to delete. So if we want to swipe to delete, we just do the opposite thing. And we do the opposite in that commit editing style inside my favorites movie view controller. So I can find my commit for row at. And if the editing style is delete, then we get the movie, we check it has an ID, because again, to do this part we need the ID. And then this code is exactly the same. The only difference is instead of array union, we say array remove, and it removes a particular element. And I can watch this happen now. So I can open again the console, and you can see my 3 movies here. And if I come in here and I delete one of these, so I like swipe on it and hit delete, you'll see it disappears from here, and it also disappears from here. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to show. I'll put this version of the code up on Moodle so you can have a look at it. All right, thanks for watching.